Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has expressed his profound joy at the reopening of the Warri Refinery and Petrochemical Company by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, describing it as another remarkable achievement in 2024 that has strengthened Nigerians' hope in his administration. The Warri Refinery returned to operation weeks after NNPCL Limited restarted the 60,000 barrels per day at the Port Harcourt Refinery in November. With Warri Refining and Petrochemical Company going into operation after several years of inactivity, President Tinubu has once again expressed his administration's determination to ramp up local refining capacity and make Nigeria a hub for downstream industrial activities in Africa. To help us understand this, we're joined by investment banker and accountant Femi Oladehin. Thank you so much, Mr. Oladehin. Okay, I think we do not have Femi Oladehin. Mr. Femi Oladehin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, finally, we're able to have you on board. Compliments of the season. Now, out of the blues, just like the Port Harcourt Refinery, the Warri Refinery has commenced operation. First, what are your thoughts on this?
Thank you for having me on this show, and Merry Christmas to you and the viewers, and Happy New Year in advance as well. It is a continuation of a rehabilitation program that had started by the NNPC actually a few years ago, prior to the coming of Melly Kerry as the current GMD. And that rehabilitation process has recently just gotten to the point where it appears that some of the facilities are beginning to come on stream. Again, I would remind viewers of one of the things that I've always said on this show, that a refinery is a very complicated, complicated production process that includes a wide range of, processes that gets to the point where you get crude oil. From crude oil, you keep refining in stages and in tranches until the point where you get to the final products. Usually when a refinery has not been working for a long time, at the time when the refinery restarts production, there is a significant calibration process that is required to ensure that the refinery is operational and works properly. So what we are seeing here again is the start of production in the refinery, in the Warri Refinery. They've showed us very good videos so that there are no doubts as to where the products were coming from.
Okay.
It's positive news. I do not believe again that we're going to see significant product outflows for the next couple of weeks as they calibrate and recalibrate the refinery and bring it to full production.
Okay, but then, of course, the Warri Refinery, 125,000 barrels per day capacity, the PH Refinery with a combined crude processing capacity of 210,000 barrels per day. With the Dangote Refinery already in operation, it seems like the bad days are over in Nigeria's downstream sector. Am I correct?
So we had an interesting conversation during the Christmas break with one of my friends, and his comment was that this is probably the first time in our history as a country that there's not been a fuel scarcity around Christmas time, at least in the last 20, 30 years that I can remember. And it's symbolic of the fact that we're now a producer and a refiner of crude oil into refined products. And that's what happens when you have a country that is able to produce what it consumes. The intention has to be that as you're able to produce what you consume, and if you're a comparative advantaged producer, then you would be able to do that as a cost that's cheaper than people that don't have the same comparative advantages, and you're able to pass those advantages to the consumers of the product.
Okay, well, what might this administration be doing differently? Because a lot of things you've mentioned in terms of reviving these either to moribund refineries that the past administrations couldn't do. We need to understand that point.
I think it would be very unfair to give credit for the restart of these refineries to the Bola Tinubu administration. In as much as we had complaints and all of that, the process of rehabilitating the refinery started during the Bihari regime. The first process was supposed to be a private sector-led process that was truncated in 2018, while the NNPC stepped in 2019 to start looking at, rehabilitating the refineries themselves. So I don't think that there is any refinery in the world that hasn't produced in 20 years that suddenly starts producing in 19 months or in 18 months for how long we've had this government. This is a fallout of work that has started prior to now, and we're simply just seeing the results of that work. And again, look, it's important to also mention that until the refineries have run for a decent amount of time, you can't also really say whether they've been fixed properly and whether the bad days are behind them. One of the problems we always had in the past was that the refineries were not properly maintained. Nigeria had a very poor maintenance culture. A refinery is supposed to be shut down probably almost every 9 to 12 months for a turnaround maintenance of the cleaning of the valves, recalibration of the furnaces and all of that. And if you don't do that, then the refinery is prone to breakdowns. So one of the biggest tests for the NNPC as it continues to restart these refineries is to ensure that they continue to produce. And the only way that is going to happen is first we'll establish the quality of work that has been done to get us thus far. And secondly, the quality of aftercare maintenance that they have for those refineries.
Even with these stories coming in, Femi, a lot of people still do not believe that this is a reality. I mean, there have been speculations around the capacity and the frequency, including the quality of what the PH refinery, is producing as we speak. So are there any guarantees? You've talked about the capacity and the frequency in passing, but then in terms of quality, are there any guarantees that what is being produced domestically by these two refineries right now is standard, is of quality?
Look, I mean, the quality control process of a refinery is a very boring process, but it's standardized. The quality of the products, there are ways that we measure its density, it's the level of sulfur that is included in as part of the refined product, is also the look and feel as well. So all of those things, you can always quality check. So because it's a process, if you have good quality control processes that go along the way from the beginning up until the end, the tendency is that you will be able to isolate where the product is going to be off spec. So a refinery doesn't suddenly produce off spec product. If you are monitoring it from stage to stage, you will be able to identify the places where the off specs actually come in. Is it during the dosing plant? Is it at the catalytic converter? There are processes that happen in a refinery that allow you to isolate what the refinery is producing at each point in time. Now, we call it a refinery because when you put in crude oil into a refinery at the beginning of the process, there are several products at each point of refining that come out of it. So there's naphtha, there's diesel, there's AGO, and it's a dependent. The dependency here is the level of refining that you do, and we're saying that look, this is something that can easily be measured at each stage of the process until you get to the final stage, which is producing PMS, which is the most refined part of the crude cracking process.
Okay, so finally, is Nigeria now edging towards energy sufficiency, efficiency, and of course security?
Look, I mean, we currently consume, post subsidy, probably about 30 to 35 million liters of petroleum products a day. Today, with 210,000 in Port Harcourt, well, I know that one of the refineries hasn't started producing properly, but there's this Port Harcourt Refinery, there's the Warri Refinery, there's the Dangote Refinery. Easily between these three refineries, you could be refining today between 600,000 and 700,000 barrels of crude a day. That is significant volumes. That tells you that we're producing give or take about 70 million to 80 million liters of petroleum products. So at some point, we're going to have a glut in the market. And we started to see Dangote's drop prices. We're expecting that as NNPCL also continues to produce, prices are going to drop as a result of supply, even though there's a flaw to that price drop, which is driven by the exchange rate, the cost of crude on the market, and of course, the cost of cracking the crude into petroleum products. But the point here is when it comes to PMS, AGO, which are the main running fuels that we use in Nigeria, we are getting to a point of efficiency and sufficiency. Now, but as a whole, as an entire value chain for energy, of course, you know that we're still miles and miles away. I doubt if the studio is not running on generator as we speak now.
Now, that's a big one. Femi Oladehin, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on the news.
Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas to you.
Same to you too, sir.